Do you remember this PC? If you don't, this is the PC I built out of scrap parts in my most popular video. It was an amazing project to do and I still enjoy watching that video every now and then. The PC, however, hasn't been used since and I really don't know what to do with it. Until now. In this video I will be turning the water cooling system from the PC into a powerful cooler for my gaming laptop. You heard me right. I will be water cooling my laptop in this video. I fully cleaned my Lenovo Legion 5 in my last video, which unlocked a lot more performance by letting more airflow through the heatsinks. But still, when I render a large video or do anything else that needs the laptop's full performance, I can feel that the heatsinks are fully saturated with heat, and even with the fans on full power, they can't keep up and the laptop thermal throttles. I found that the bottom panel of this laptop gets pretty hot in the process, and my idea is to press the CPU water block from the Pentium PC to the underside of the laptop. My hope is that the water block can take some of the laptop's heat away and up my performance or lower my temperatures. It would be more efficient to remove the bottom panel or cut a hole in it, so the water block can contact the heat pipes directly above the CPU and GPU dies. But this requires permanently modifying the laptop or having the internals open to the outside air, which isn't the best idea if you want the laptop to still be portable. Let's start with emptying the PC case a little. I started with taking the USB hub out of the cable box, as I'm planning on using that USB hub to power the pump and RGB from a different power source. The next step is removing all the tubing, as I'm going to be redoing some of it and some tubes have turned opaque after all this time. I also removed the CPU water block from the CPU. I cut the zip ties that held it down to the motherboard and then removed the block. I could now finally see if I added enough thermal paste and if the mounting pressure was enough. And the paste looks great! It's still nice and moist and it's spread over the whole CPU's heat spreader. This means that the water block was actually able to efficiently contact the CPU and draw away its heat, which is awesome to see. Now with the PC case stripped from its cooling system, it's time to add a power system. I was planning on adding a separate power supply, but that would take up too much space in my case, and why do that when this PC already contains a perfectly good power supply? I unplugged the motherboard from the power supply and then bridged the green wire to a black wire using a piece of paperclip. This tricks the power supply into thinking the PC is on, making it output voltage. I can now reattach the USB hub, as I'm now using the original power system, instead of an external power supply. After the USB hub was connected again, I reinstalled the radiator. I added the second fan to it, so more air gets through there without having to put the fans on full blast. The fans are tied together and will get their 5 volts of power from the same SATA connector the USB hub is using. I then plugged both RGB systems and the pump into the USB hub and closed the cable box again. Now it's time to rebuild the cooling system. I started with connecting 2 long tubes to the water block, and then fed those tubes via the PCIe brackets into the case. I can then attach one tube to the output of the pump and the other one goes onto the radiator. I was able to reuse both tubes coming from the reservoir, with the first one connecting to the input of the pump and the other one to the output of the radiator. There used to be a thermometer mounted in the case with its thermal probe in the radiator, but its batteries ran out and I couldn't find replacements in time. It's now time to fill the loop. I started with priming the pump and then plugged the PC in. The pump instantly started pumping water through the tubes, and you can see the water block filling up. All air bubbles have been bled from the loop after a few minutes of running, and I now have a flexible cooling system to cool anything. My original plan was to water cool my Legion 5 by pressing the water block to the back of its plastic cover, as I've noticed that part gets very hot when the laptop is doing work. I was not expecting the solution to make the fans obsolete or anything, but just to give the CPU a little more headroom and maybe let it draw 10 more watts. This was, however, not the case. I ran a few Cinebench tests with my current cooling solution, the laptop propped up on a book stand with holes cut in it. It scored an average score of 11,934 points. With the water block firmly pressed onto the back, the score stayed around the same. This is pretty disappointing but not unexpected, as there is a substantial air gap between the laptop's heat pipes and the water block. While I was testing the system, I noticed that a puddle of water had formed underneath the pump. I didn't push the input tube all the way onto the connector and it started dripping. Luckily I was able to fix it within a few minutes. I also tested a few runs with the back of the laptop off and the water block pressed against the heat pipes, which are directly in contact with the CPU and GPU dies. This run gave me 12,298 points, which is about a 3% increase. Though the CPU's temperature was around 90 degrees in this run, comparing to the 97 degrees from the normal air-cooled runs. But why can this water cooling setup cool the Pentium PC's 80W CPU without problems, but fail to make a meaningful difference on my laptop CPU? Well, you know that you need thermal paste for good contact between the cooler's cold plate and the CPU. Why shouldn't that apply in this case? So I added a lot of thermal paste onto the water block and pressed it firmly against the heat pipes right above my CPU. I then started to stress test again. The resulting score went up to 12,372, which is an almost 4% increase over the stock system. This isn't a meaningful change, but the CPU temperatures in this run were around 85 degrees instead of 97. This shows that the laptop won't automatically boost the CPU higher just because it's running cooler. That's a bit disappointing because it means I can't unlock more performance just by adding better cooling. But it's also reassuring. The built-in cooler is already good enough to let the CPU run at its full intended performance. The GPU shares the same cooling system too, so when I do something that pushes both the CPU and GPU, the cooler is pretty much maxed out instantly. My studio is around 30 degrees Celsius though, so using this laptop in a cooler place would help the cooling system a lot. I might find a way to make water cooling my laptop a viable solution, but I still need this laptop to be portable. I don't have any more time however, as I'm going on holiday and want to upload this video before that. Let me know if you have any ideas for this wacky cooling setup and I'll see you in the next video.